Alright, so welcome to video 4. I'm going to give you some study suggestions. These are not necessarily specific to this course. Some of them are and some of them are not. So hopefully this is worth your time. So I'm going to start by talking about this. This is the forgetting curve. And the idea, this is something that's been studied a lot for over 100 years. And what we know is that when we first learn something to the point that we get to 100%, so maybe you do one of these inquisitive assignments and you answer the questions and you get to the point that you're getting 100%, and it's the first time that you've looked at it. We know that by about a day later, the average person only remembers about 80% of that, and by 3 days later, the average person will only remember about 60%, and then it goes down from there. But typically, there's this sweet spot. If somebody comes back at the point where they've gotten to that 80% level and they relearn it to 100%, so you've done the inquisitive till you've gotten 100%, and then a day later you come back and review it. Getting to 100% the first time may take you 30 minutes, it may take you an hour. Getting that additional 20% back on the next day may take you 10 or 15 minutes. It'll take you a lot less time because you don't have as much to learn. You only have 1/5 as much to relearn. When you relearn it, but the more important thing is that when you learn it the second time, instead of forgetting 20% of it in a day, you retain it longer. You get back, you remember almost 90% a day later, and you still remember 80% 2 days later. When you hit that 80% sweet spot again, you want to go back and review it again until you get to 100%. And this should take even less time than this did because you're already more familiar with it. And then when you learn it the third time, it takes roughly 3 times as long to forget it to the 80% level. So the idea is you want to keep coming back and relearning it to the 100% level when you hit that sweet spot of 80%. Can you do that precisely in a course like this where we're going to go through 15 chapters in 15 weeks? You're responsible for remembering them all, and you're responsible for all your other classes as well. Well, no, you're probably not going to schedule this perfectly so that you do it at day 1, day 3, day 6, and day 10. You're probably not going to schedule it that precisely, but you can still use this idea, which is don't come in the night before the exam and learn it to 100% because you're going to get an 80% on the exam. What you want to do is take that first chapter, do it early. Take the second chapter, do it ahead of schedule. Do all the chapters ahead of schedule so that you can review them all at least a couple of times before the exam. And then you can come back the night before the exam. If you're here, if you're on your first, second, third review, if you're on your third review the night before the exam and you get to 100%, you're going to get something like a 97 on the exam. And this, remember, this is pretty much based on the average person. So you get to that point where the night before the exam, it's not your first time looking at it, your second time looking at it, or even your third time. Try to make it your fourth or fifth time looking at it, and then you should be able to get that 97% on the exam. And that's going to help your grade a lot. And specifically with this class, those inquisitives are your best tool for doing this. Once you lock in your grade, you can go back to them time and time again. It cannot hurt your grade. It will not lower your grade, but it will help you to study. Forget the first line of this. First time I taught this course in this format, we only had 5 weeks. We have 15. But study a few minutes a few times a week instead of just 6 hours right before the test. Start the inquisitives early. Um, you have actually about a month, not quite a month. You have 3 to 4 weeks to do each set of chapter assignments. Finish them ahead of schedule and review them as many times as you can. But remember, you don't want to review it the very next day. You don't necessarily want to review it every day. What you want to do is do it once and review it once a day or two later, and then put a few days in between before you come back to it. So it's not an everyday thing. It should be a setting some time aside once or twice a week thing. You can use the flashcards a few minutes, a few times a week. The flashcards are very, very, very basic concepts, though. They're not going to end up being test questions, but they're going to be definitions that you're going to need in order to understand the test questions. I suppose some of the really easy test questions, the flashcards might be enough for. But the flashcards are basically basic concepts. Use the lecture slides to organize your notes. You don't really have to worry about not taking pictures. That's more of an in-person class thing. But these are all published in Canvas, and I don't have a PDF download option available, but I have a plain white web page option available for all the notes, so you can download them as plain white, organized like an outline, and use it for taking notes. And just because you're watching an online lecture doesn't mean you shouldn't take notes. You should treat it just the same as a real lecture. Taking notes is an excellent way to put things into your brain. Try rewriting concepts in your own words, especially if you come across something you don't understand. Use the index in the book to find out more about it. Use a reputable dictionary to look up words you don't understand. Attend office hours and ask. I have this about discussion boards. I don't really have one set up, but I can. You should feel free to talk to other students in the class, though. That's the main point there. Use the flashcards for some of those basic things, and then use the notes you take to finish the journal assignments. You can even combine the two a little bit. But really try rewriting concepts in your own words. The physicist Richard Feynman, much smarter guy than me, had the idea that he told people that you really understood a concept when you could explain it to a 12-year-old, and that the best way to learn a concept was to think about how you would explain it to a 12-year-old. I used to tell people, think about if you were trying to explain this to your 10-year-old younger brother, sister, cousin, whatever. Richard Feynman said 12-year-old. He's smarter than me, so I'm going to say 12-year-old. Try explaining it to a 12-year-old. In writing, in your own words. So you're not going to use the college level writing of the author of the book, or the words that I use that are American English, Midwestern Texas combination, that I know sometimes I say things that are not quite obvious what I mean. Instead, rewrite it in your own words. When you can do that, you know you understand it. And when you can do that where a 12-year-old would understand it, you know you really have a good take on it. Use a good note-taking system such as Cornell Notes. Use your Cornell Notes to make your own study guide, which is much more effective than just staring at a study guide I made for you. That's the reason that the study guide I am making for you is going to be just questions. Because I want you to do the cognitive work, the thinking work of trying to answer the questions. That's a much better way to learn them than to just sit and stare at if I were to make a study guide that was just, here's the question, here's the answer. I want you to think through the questions. But you should also really try to make your own study guide, doing something like the Cornell Notes system. Those Cornell Notes also are an alternative that you can do for the journal entries. So make yourself familiar with the Cornell Notes. And if this link doesn't work, you can just look up Cornell notes and go to the Cornell University website, and you can get that. Take advantage of the practice exams. After you've done all of those other things, I'm going to post practice quizzes and exams. But make those the last thing you do, not the first thing. If you've done all of these other things, the practice exams are just for confidence building. They're just so that you know what the format is like, and so you're used to how it's going to roll, and you build a little confidence. Major course expectations. I just want to revisit this again because some of the introductory stuff I sound kind of grumpy or whatever. I really hope that all of you succeed in this course, especially since this is a completely online course with no scheduled meetings. You're going to get out of this what you put into it, both in learning and your final grade. And when most of you come out of this, heck, I hope all of you come out of this with an A that you earned and that you can be proud of. I do also want you to engage with the material, think about it a little bit, and think about its meaning, how you can apply it, especially given that the topic is U.S. government, and most of you don't live in the U.S. And probably won't in the near future, but some of you may. Think about think about these things and how you can apply them. Hopefully, if nothing else, hopefully the ethics sections will give you some material that you can apply. So that's it for this. I will have some of the Module 1 lectures out later this week. Thanks. Bye.